So let's talk inflation and interest rates, because this is going to be, barring a miracle, this is going to be the unfortunate story of the next few years at the very least. So, I mean, I'm in Israel currently. Israel in the 70s, 80s experienced hyperinflation. And you normally associate hyperinflation like Weimar Germany or Venezuela, but Israel experienced it in the 70s, 80s, and it had to create a new currency, the new shekel, and get rid of the old shekel, because the old shekel had lost all its value. So, I mean, those are extreme cases. You would hope US, UK currencies wouldn't ever experience that level of inflation. I mean, it only really happened in Israel because Israel started off with a socialist economy. When it built the nation state from scratch, there was no infrastructure, and I think to get a country off the ground, you kind of need socialism. You need people grouping together to build that first layer of society when there's no infrastructure, there's no markets that have been created because you're like starting from scratch. So that hyperinflation was kind of like the final straw, or the last signal of, okay, we need to move on from this socialism stuff. And a lot of the credit has to go to the current Prime Minister, Netanyahu. As Finance Minister and as Prime Minister, he took Israel from a broadly socialist economy to a capitalist economy. The major bank was state-owned, I think, when he was Finance Minister. Around that time, he was certainly involved in making the state bank private and able to compete and offer better services than the state monopoly was previously providing. So Israel currently, when in comparison to the inflation rates experienced in the US and UK, isn't doing too badly. I think the whole world's going to be impacted by this storm, but if I had to guess, I think Israel will get through it better than most, and a large part of the credit has to go to Netanyahu and for the work that he's done in previous decades. So I mean, it's kind of funny that while the US and the UK are potentially going into reeling economic times, struggling with high inflation, high interest rates, the Israelis are actually protesting against Netanyahu when he's played a massive part in ensuring Israel's in good shape going into these challenging times. So yeah, I mean, hopefully it won't get anywhere near as bad as I fear it could. But I mean, interest rates were forced to rise to 17-18% around 1980 time, and we've had a decade of incredibly unprecedented monetary policy in the US and UK. So I don't really see an exit that isn't going to be hugely challenging for, I suppose, everyone, from the people that run central banks to the governments to people who are paying off their mortgage. I don't think anyone is really mentally prepared for how bad it could get. Fingers crossed it doesn't, but if history tells us anything, the chickens are going to come home to roost after what's happened with monetary policy in the last decade.